Hello, I'm Nima Rajan, and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. After fleeing their home community more than a week ago, Pikangikum First Nation members have packed their bags and are finally headed home. The first of 7 flights left the city early Friday afternoon, and self-evacuees started the journey home as early as this past Wednesday. Alana Pickerel has more.
After 10 days in the city following the evacuation of Pikangikum due to a nearby forest fire, the evacuees are loading onto military planes and finally heading home. Approximately 65 people were listed on the first flight out of Thunder Bay Friday afternoon, with more flights scheduled before the end of the day.
Today we have a bunch of flights planned coming out of Thunder Bay and Kapuskasing. 7 today out of Thunder Bay and 2 more out of Kapuskasing. So lots of good news in terms of having the people move forward, get them out of the community, and actually get them out of our host communities and return them back to their home communities. So.
The fire that forced a community-wide evacuation in the first place is still listed as not under control by the Ministry of Natural Resources. However, recent rains have toned down the fire behavior and helped the suppression efforts, which have made it safe for everyone to return. Hop says Pikangikum residents are very excited to finally be heading back home after the long stint in the city.
In terms of Thunder Bay people, we're hoping that we can get a good chunk of them out today. In terms of, we have roughly 650 or so people in the community right now, according to our numbers of the 3 hotels plus the self-evacuees. And if everything works out well in terms of the airlift, we should have a minimal amount of people left.
There were also coach buses on hand at the Valhalla Inn on Friday morning. However, they were a backup plan, and Hop says they won't be needed for this trip home. All transported evacuees will be flown back to their community, and self-evacuees were expected to be checked out of their hotel by Saturday and drive themselves home. Meanwhile, more than 200 residents from Kiwewin First Nation who were evacuated to Sioux Lookout and Timmins in early July are also heading home. The massive fire near the community, known as Red Lake 23, has been reduced to minimal fire behavior, according to the MNR. Alana Pickerel, TBT News.
After much uncertainty, the town of Fort Frances now knows that the former lifeblood of their community is under new ownership. The sale of the town's pulp and paper mill was confirmed this week. Resolute Forest Products announced that it's completed a sale of the mill to a subsidiary of River's Edge Developments in partnership with a, quote, local entity. Now, while this sale does mean that the things are happening in regards to the former economic driver, residents still don't know what this means for the property. Previously, Resolute had made it known that they were not interested in selling to a buyer who would compete with them for wood fiber, and many locals worry that the sale will result in the demolition of the mill. Town Councillor Douglas Judson says Fort Frances has had positive conversations with the new buyer, but he acknowledges that there is still a lot of concern and emotion from residents. River's Edge officials say that they will provide more information on their plans next week. This isn't the only project that River's Edge has been involved in here in the region. Several years ago, the company purchased the former Norampak mill in Red Rock. A bus driver is voicing concerns over the future of school bus operations in the North Shore and Greenstone areas and the impact that it would have on local employment.
We are not hauling logs here. We are hauling people and children.
Last month, the president of the Bullia Bus Lines and Greenstone Transfer Limited, Renald Bullia, was informed that the transportation consortium for all the school boards in the region would be using a new carrier, Southland Transportation out of Alberta, to run bus services in the area this upcoming fall. Now he's concerned Southland will coordinate its operations out of Nipigon, where the weather conditions can be much different from the Greenstone region. He's also concerned over local employment, as 30 people are expected to lose their jobs as a result of this carrier.
I know that there's still people that can work and do things and make it happen. I'm not saying that's impossible, but we are really affected by it, and our drivers are affected by this. We're a big family. That's who we are. Bullia Bus Line, Greenstone Transfer is a big family. We don't just drive kids, we cater to our drivers, we've made adjustments to make things happen.
Bullia says his company will continue, but he plans to see how the new operator will adapt to the region. In an emailed statement, the East of Thunder Bay Transportation Consortium says the busing contract was based on an open and competitive bidding process. In another emailed statement from Southland Transportation, a spokesperson for the company states that Southland has had a long history of safety and plans to hire local drivers and intends to purchase a new fleet of buses to serve the North Shore and Greenstone areas. Questions are swirling over the status of the twinning of Highway 17 between Kenora and the Manitoba border. The project has been in the works for over a decade, with many hoping that it would begin this year. But to date, no construction work has started on the first 6-kilometer section, which would twin from the border of Highway 673. The lack of progress has now sparked a war of words between the region's top politicians. In a statement, Provincial Minister Greg Rickford says for 3 years, Bob Nolt knew that the previous Ontario government had the funding to twin this stretch of highway, as well as had the opportunity to work with them, and nothing was done. Quote, Rickford adds that the planning, design, and engineering work is currently underway, but he provides no timelines for construction. In response, the Liberal MP released a statement sarcastically comparing Rickford and Doug Ford's commitment to the same project Rickford and then Prime Minister Stephen Harper committed to in 2009. He says 10 years later, here we are again with the same old promises, and Highway 17 remains untwinned and as dangerous as ever. Nolt insists that the feds will contribute to the twinning, but he says the province must submit to the project to Ottawa as a top priority first, and so far that hasn't happened. The Chief and Council of the Yamatung First Nation have declared a state of emergency due to water system contamination. Weather testing in late June showed high levels of trihalomethanes. The community has been under a boil water advisory since 2001. The federal government recently funded a new water treatment plant, but other infrastructure, including sewage lift stations, have not yet been upgraded. Chief Harvey Yesno is requesting immediate action from Ottawa, and he's advising their 1,600 residents not to consume the water until the issues are permanently resolved. Well, Tuesday marked a day of celebration in Scriber as residents and politicians from the region gathered to commemorate the completion of a legacy project for the township. The Clearwell Water Storage Project has been a work in progress for several years, aimed at providing a better water supply to the town of 1100. It was also an emotional event as the water storage tower was named in honor of a former mayor who passed away last year. Adam Riley was there and files this report.
The completion of the Clearwell Water Storage Project in Scriber means water problems such as the series of boil water advisories the community has issued in the last few months will be a thing of the past. CAO Don MacArthur says before the facility, Scriber's water was treated on demand, which was a problem.
The maximum we could treat water and use water was 53 liters per second before. So, things like firefighting were impossible if you opened up 2 fire hydrants if you had a large fire. Now, as long as that treated water is up there, we can use that water on demand.
MacArthur stresses that despite the capacity of the tank, which when full has 2 to 5 days supply of water depending on usage, that conservation is key, and the rest of the town's water infrastructure is starting to show its age with leaks. Thunder Bay Superior North MPP Michael Gravel was on hand for the event as the province provided over $3 million towards the project.
It was $3.1 million from the province and some slight contribution from the federal government as well to help go forward through the natural gas tax program. So that was helpful to the project as well. But it was a large contribution by the province that made the project happen.
Area MP Patty Haidu says it's imperative for communities to have access to clean water, not just for public health, but for economic stability.
In order to actually have thriving communities that have the potential to grow or to develop themselves economically, they have to have a supply of water and they have to be able to treat that water properly.
The completion of the project was also emotional for some, as the facility was the last project led by former mayor and councillor Bob Krause, who passed away late last year. His efforts on the project are being recognized as it is now formally named the Bob Krause Water Storage Project. Krause's son, Kim, who now sits on council, says his father was very close to the project right to the very end.
He used to like doing his rounds every day, driving around town, checking things out, and his last wish was to go and see how the tower was going so he could go up there. So he got all the way up, and he looked at it, and he says, I don't think it's going to be done in time when it's getting there. But yeah, it was a big, big, passionate project of his, and like everything Dad did, I mean, he was bigger than life, and anything he took it on with a lot of gusto and a lot of passion.
Krause adds his father was a man for the people, and the water tower, in a way, symbolizes that passion.
It's kind of iconic that you can actually, it looks over the whole town now, so it's like Dad looking over the whole town. And the really interesting part is we can stand in my mom's backyard at her house and look up at it as well. So he's not just looking over the town, he's looking over the whole family. So.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
Ontario provincial police across the region have taken to social media to shine a light on stunt driving. The posted photos show what some drivers are greatly surpassing the speed limit. Pictures from the OPP Northwest Region's Twitter account show the extreme speeds some drivers have been caught doing on area highways. Police consider anything more than 50 kilometers per hour over the speed limit to be classified as stunt driving. Last year, the regional OPP laid 114 of these charges. Acting Sergeant Patrina Taylor-Hertz says with the type of roads in our area, speeding is even more dangerous.
Well, Highway 17 is, for the most part, a two-lane highway and definitely unforgiving. You have one lane of traffic and you have ditches and rock faces. So traveling at that speed, if you're involved in a collision, there's going to be a lot of damage, if not personal injury.
Taylor-Hertz says they hope the online publicity will lead to more members of the public to call in about stunt driving. Around 1/4 of all road deaths in Ontario are attributed to speeding. When we come back, water levels and flows on Lake Superior are causing headaches for the township of Nipigon and its marina. Water levels on Lake Superior have reached record high levels this year, and while it has improved access for some fish into spawning grounds, it's having an unfortunate side effect on lakeside residents. The town of Nipigon is currently dealing with repairs to their marina docks after a surge of water caused extensive damage. Corey Nordstrom reports.
It is what we're seeing here really is that proverbial perfect storm that everyone talks about.
Lake Superior water levels are the highest they've ever been since measurements started just over a century ago, and it's causing some headaches for property owners along the lake, including the township of Nipigon, where the marina and its dock have taken the brunt of what the water can do.
A brand new wharf, and it really has seen some significant damage. It's quite frequently when the sage comes in, that is what Lake Superior's equivalent of a tide, we have it right underwater and it's beginning to break off of its base and starting to float.
Mayor Richard Harvey says the problem started when MNRF removed a breakwall on the river, which protected the marina, in a bid to improve fish habitat, which Harvey says didn't work.
Now that water that used to be diverted out into Lake Superior is now coming in and is causing back eddies and is causing currents that actually are running up into the marina.
Harvey says studies have been done and a plan is in place to replace the breakwall, but there is a catch.
Right now, we are prepared to move ahead with this anytime. The issue right now, of course, is the funding to take care of that.
Harvey isn't certain as to what it would cost to rebuild the wall or if there is a project timeline, but he is hopeful it can start soon before more damage to the marina can occur. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
It looks like Bill Morrow will be staying put as mayor of Thunder Bay. Morrow sent an email on Thursday to confirm that he will not be seeking the federal Liberal nomination in Thunder Bay Rainy River. Now, back in March, Morrow had said that he was approached by Liberal officials to enter the race after MP Don Rusnak announced that he wouldn't run again in the fall. The former provincial cabinet minister had said that he was considering his options. The Riding Association delayed its nomination meeting, presumably to allow Morrow to make up his mind. And now he's decided that he won't seek the party banner. That leaves 4 declared candidates who have all been green-lighted by federal party officials. Thunder Bay City Councillor Shelby Chung, former Green candidate Christy Radbourne, former Heritage Party candidate David Bruno, and Thunder Bay physician Dr. Marcus Pulowski. The nomination meetings will be held July 28th in Fort Frances and Atikokan and July 29th at the Da Vinci Centre in Thunder Bay. The Northern Ontario School of Medicine is welcoming its new dean to Thunder Bay. Dr. Sarita Verma was officially welcomed into her role on July 1st. She replaces founding dean Dr. Roger Strasser, who held the role for 17 years. Dr. Verma comes to NASM from Ottawa, but has also served in a variety of high-level roles in academia, including at Queen's University and the University of Toronto. Verma says NASM does very well in retaining graduating doctors here in Northern Ontario, but there is still a gap in some remote opportunities. She believes part of that answer, or the answer to the concern, is technology.
Although over 90% of the students who graduate from here and do their residency stay here, that they don't go to the rural and remote communities. And I think we need to address that. So can we use an integrative approach towards really neat emerging technology like robotics, artificial intelligence, like distance medicine? I'm not just talking about telemedicine, I'm talking about avatar medicine. I'm talking about virtual reality medicine. I'm talking about stuff that would get people excited about healthcare.
Some of Dr. Verma's priorities include creating more pathways for Indigenous students to enter the school and ensuring that health needs of Indigenous and Francophone populations in the North are met. She plans to split her time about evenly between NASM's 2 campuses in Thunder Bay and Sudbury. Coming up after the break, superfans from the region flocked to Thunder Bay to meet Robert Bortuzzo and the Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup made its return to our area this week. Thunder Bay's Robert Bortuzzo is the 8th player from northwestern Ontario to win the famous trophy over the past 13 years. People from across the region came to see Bortuzzo and the Cup on Tuesday, including some lifelong St. Louis Blues fans from White River. Corey Nordstrom has the story.
Raucous applause greeted first-time Stanley Cup champion Robert Bortuzzo as he made his way into the Da Vinci Center ballroom. Hundreds had gathered to see the hometown boy share his special day with them, and he was more than happy to oblige.
It's special. You know, some guys have been able to do it in the past, and you've kind of driven by or you've gone to see the Cup in town, and you know what it means to a town like this. And for myself to have a chance to bring it back to this community that's meant so much to my career and my life, and I like spending time here, means a lot.
Some, like Cassandra Mullawishin, have been following the career of the Blues defenseman since he was playing at the Fort Williams Gardens, and are very proud of how far he has come.
I've watched Robert play when he was on the North Stars 13 years ago when I was 10, so it's kind of a big deal for me. I try to make it when the Stanley Cup's here, but this one meant more to me than all the other ones.
Lifelong Blues fan Wayne Parizet was first in line to meet Bortuzzo, arriving 4.5 hours before the event began. He spent yesterday getting a memento of the season that was, and says he never had a doubt they'd pull through.
Were you surprised that they actually pulled it out?
Not really. When they got rolling, I think they got rolling pretty good there, and they did it.
Parizet's grandson Dylan has been a Blues fan since birth. He says it means a lot to the young people across northwestern Ontario when one of their own wins hockey's ultimate prize.
It's pretty inspiring because when I was younger, I used to want to play hockey. Like, I played hockey my whole life and then I got hurt. But it means a lot that there's a lot of people coming, especially from Thunder Bay, that are just making it to the NHL. And especially that he was on my favorite team, that was pretty great to hear.
The true joy they've felt for myself is, I can't say how much I appreciate that from them. And like I said, very fortunate to be in the position I'm in and to be able to spend it with the people that I have in my life.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT Sports.
A city councillor in Dryden isn't very pleased with the current draft of a bylaw that would have an impact on the usage of city parks. The city began drafting a bylaw to deal with noise in city parks after a business owner came forward in late June complaining over the issue near Van Horn Landing, which is a recreational area and not a park. The draft was presented to council earlier this month, but several of the provisions in the draft raised the ear of Councillor Shane McKinnon. He says he understands restricting the use of motorized vehicles, alcohol, and dangerous activities in the parks, but sometimes listed went too far.
Restrictions in this bylaw where you aren't allowed in a park after 9 p.m. There was restrictions on things that you could do in the park. I think there definitely should be rules, but I think they should be common sense rules.
McKinnon wants administration to water down the proposal and see more efforts and collaboration put towards youth-based activities, such as the new youth center. However, that facility will only works with youth from 11 to 16. McKinnon hopes to see something where youths in the 16 and up age group are able to have a place in the city. 28 teachers from across Canada are getting their lesson plans prepared as they get ready to move to some remote First Nation communities in September. The 3-week Teach for Canada training program is being hosted at Lakehead University. Alana Pickrell has more.
Well over 100 teachers from Teach for Canada program have gone to work in First Nations throughout Northern Ontario, and 28 more are getting ready to pack up for this September after they complete 3 weeks of training about culture, community, and classroom planning. The nonprofit organization recruits, prepares, and supports teachers on their journey to one of the 19 partner First Nation communities. Teacher Development Director Liz Helena says unfortunately there is a very high turnover rate for teachers in the far north.
Teachers just aren't prepared for those cultural differences. When teachers go north, they have challenges with managing isolation and loneliness, being far away from family, and may not know how to work with First Nations communities. So we see ourselves as a bridge.
All of the teachers completing the program through Teach for Canada already have jobs lined up in northern communities. Mina Prabhakar is heading to Pikangikum First Nation to teach a grade 3 class. For her, this has been a long-time dream, and she's very excited to teach her new students. However, she believes this will be a big learning experience for her as well.
I would be like a child when I go there because I want to learn everything there, how to live close to the nature, how to live into the limited resources.
The program is designed to provide teachers with the skills and tools they need to be able to build relationships in the First Nations with both their students and community members. Husband and wife duo Pamela and Gideon Thwaites have previously been teaching overseas, but they knew that teaching in Fort Hope First Nation was the next step for them.
We've never had the opportunity to learn about or have first-hand experience with First Nations people in Canada, and we thought that that was the most awesome way to re-enter Canada.
I'm actually surprised at how much I can relate to what's happening in the First Nations because, of course, the TRC started in South Africa, so I'm really relating a lot to the discussions that we're having now.
Each teacher signs up for at least a 2-year commitment with their First Nation, but Helena says many end up staying even longer now. Alana Pickrell, TBT News.
And that'll do it for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Nima Rajan. Take care.